Whether fishing from a boat or beach, there's a multitude of leads and lures to choose from. Here's just a few that I get asked to make from time to time. Sure, I only get asked to make so many because they think it's difficult or too time consuming to do. Sometimes all you need is someone to show you how to get started. Hopefully by the end of this you may just get encouraged to have a go yourself. But whichever lead you choose, the principal method of making them is exactly the same. But for this demonstration we're going to be focusing on the fast drop perk and the Norway perk. Now the only preparation you need to do before making your leads is make your eyelets. Now you can buy these ready made, but they can work out quite expensive, so I do prefer to make my own. These are just made by 50mm paper clips. Cut them in half and each piece of it will form one eyelet of either end of the perk. Place the paper clip in the mould and bend it over like so to create that shape. And with the side cutters, bend one side up, same again with the other side, and then bend each end over to form a hook. That way then, when that's in the mould, there's no way that will ever pull out. Place it back in your mould, and as you can see, that fits in perfect and that's ready to go. Show you one more. Place it into your mould, bend it over to create that shape, and with your cutters, bend one side up, same again with the other, make a hook on the end, just place it back into your mould to make sure it fits okay, and that's it. That's another one ready to go. Easy as that. And that's all I use for the Norway perk. Now for the fast drop perk, what I've done here is made a little jig in my workbench just by drilling 2 holes in the top and using 2 pieces of round bar. And all I use for that is this galvanised wire. Basically place it up against your jig and bend one end round. Now with a pair of pliers you need to crimp the end and squash it right up as such, and then do exactly the same with the other end and crimp that end up as well. Now the reason you need to crimp those ends up, and it really is important, is to make sure that it fits inside your mould. Now that fits in perfect. The reason why you need to do that is because when you do put your mould together, you don't want any seams around the edges, because it will create some seepage around the edge, and it's just all that means you've got to trim more off after. You will always get a bit of seepage, but what you're trying to do is reduce as much as you can, so there's very little to trim off later. Just show you one more again. It's really simple. Just bend one end round. With the pliers just crimp it up. Take the other end round. Crimp the other end up. Easy as that. Place that into your mould, and as you can see, it fits perfect, and that's ready. You can make hundreds of these. A lot of the time all I do is just sitting in on an evening when I've nothing better to do, just bending these wires. What you need to try and do though is make as many as you need for any sitting, for whatever amount of lead you want to make, because just remember that these moulds get hot as you're pouring lead into them. So the more you make, the hotter it gets. The last thing you want to be doing is trying to bend these wires inside to fit the mould while this mould is hot. It's just impossible to do, and you'll just get burnt. Show you one more time with the Norway, the paper clip. Bend it over, bend one side up and the other side up, bend the ends over to form a hook, and that's done. And that'll fit perfect in your mould. I'll show you one more time with the fast drop mould. Just bend that round, and with your pliers crimp that up. Same again at the other end. Crimp that side up. As quick as that. And they're ready to go straight into the mould and ready to pour your lead in. Easy. Right, before you start pouring your lead into your mould, a couple of things first. Health and safety. I know this is usually the boring bit, but it's necessary, trust me. I know firsthand. Make sure you've got your goggles on and a good pair of gloves. You really do need to protect your eyes and hands. Accidents can happen and you can get seriously hurt, so don't mess about. Now the Norway perk, as you've already seen, wires are pre-made. Put your eyelets into the mould. Fit over. Now I always use a G-clamp to seal these up for two reasons really. Firstly, it helps to seal this mould up as tight as possible, plus it helps keep it stood up in place. Now, take your pan off the stove, pour it into your mould. Now as quick as it takes to put the pan back on the stove, that lead's already melted and set. Look at the mould up. And that's done. Now at this point, what I usually find easiest is to trim off any excess while it's still hot. So with your side cutters again, trim off the nugget on the end where you pour the lead in. Any excess around the eyelets, take them off. Just a little bit less to trim off, and it makes it easier when it cools down. But that's that one done. As quick and as simple as that. For your fast drop perk, exactly the same. Remember, we made these wires earlier, so these are ready to just go straight in. Put that on. Clamp in place. That's on place there. Pan. That one done again. Don't worry about any spillage over the top. It sets instantly and you can just pick it up with your gloves on, pop it back in the pan to melt. Trimming off the ends, any excess around the eyes, there's less to trim off later. Hang them up to cool. And that's it. It's as quick as that. Nothing hard about it. Really simple. Now, as you can probably see, now these have cooled down, they're a little bit rough and tatty around the edges and around the eyelets. So the next process is to trim these down, making them as smooth and as tidy as possible. Now at this stage it's not really necessary, but if you are trying to make them look as professional as possible, and if you're wanting to give a nice smooth finish, whether you paint or powder coat, then you need to trim these down so they can get a nice even coat all around the perk. Right, now what I usually find the best method to do this is just to get a Stanley knife. What you need to do is run your blade all the way down the back of the perk where the seam is and just trim that off. Run it back down the other end to where the nugget was attached and just trim that little piece off there. Doesn't have to be perfect, you're just trying to get it as smooth as possible. Put the point of the Stanley knife blade in the eyelet just to clear any excess around there. Same again at the other end. Then run it down the back of the perk again. As I said before, you'll always get a bit of seepage through the seam of the mould, regardless of what method you use to clamp it together. If you want to achieve a professional finish when you come to powder coat it, you need to get these as smooth as possible so it gives a nice even coating and a nice smooth finish. So that's the eyelet clear on both ends, all the way down the back, the face. Exactly the same with a fast drop perk. Just clearing around the eyelet. As I say, best thing is to get a Stanley knife because you can get the point right into the eyelet, keeping that as clear as possible. And you need to do this because when you come to powder coat it, if you haven't cleared it up, basically the powder coat will stick to the surface of the lead. Now if the eyelet is filled up with lead, then basically when you powder coat it, then the powder coat's going to stick to whatever lead's in the eyelet. And by the time you've done powder coating, the eyelet is full to the point where you can't get any fishing line through, any split ring, any hooks, anything you intend to attach to it is totally bunged up because of the lead what you haven't trimmed away. So it's as simple as that. Just a quick clean of the eyelet, cleaning down the back and the front to make it a nice even coating when you come to powder coat.